we got the government to change the rules so that people could invest in movies the way they did in oil and gas. And that was a very, very prominent time for us to do it. And we were making a fair number of films. I don't know that there were any terrifically great ones, but some of them did come along that we learned on. And I think the sort of Canadian artistes, if you like to call it then, liked the fact that they had an opportunity to make films that their American competitors couldn't do because they had the tax breaks. Now, there weren't that many of the great artists, and a lot of people now talk about, oh, I didn't like those terrible tax shelter days. But you'll find all the guys that are still making movies, that's how they got started making them then.
Now, with the Canadian Film Centre started around the same time as the festival, there was always a synergy between the two. Is that correct?
Well, I think that's because Norman Jewison had gone on to the board of the film festival, and Norman, no matter how big he gets in America, has always been a Canada firster. So he thought we were doing useful things, and he began to see the issues, which were that there are all sorts of film schools, but generally speaking, film schools are a place that you look at films and study them. I don't know that it teaches you much about them. But Norman had this vision of setting up some place that people could learn about the business and from people who were in the business. And I think it was a brilliant idea, and it's grown and proven itself since then. I think we're kind of a lucky rabbit's foot for a lot of directors, a lot of talent. You know, you get things like we had last year, the 30th anniversary of The Big Chill, and Lawrence Kasdan and all the cast came up and could put the movie on, and it was just as good then as it was 30 years ago. And I was talking to Kasdan and I said, you know, we only got it because the studio thought this was a dog. He said, yeah, I know. And I said, we were really pleased when there was a huge standing ovation. He said, you think you were pleased? Everybody here, that was what made us. And I think that's the great thing about a festival.
So would you say then basically that the Big Chill for the Toronto Festival was sort of similar to what happened with Sex, Lies, and Videotape for Sundance?
Yeah, I think it might be. You know, there's been several examples of that. Chariots of Fire is my favorite one. That was a movie that the studio said, uh-oh, this is a dog, and we bought it. What are we going to do with it? The problem is they bought it in Cannes, but they brought it without the soundtrack, because Zamfir hadn't done that soundtrack. Well, I tell you, you watch that movie without that soundtrack, it's not a great movie. So that was there. And very recently, Slumdog Millionaire, that was going direct to home video until the screening at the Ryerson Theatre. And people said, hold on, this is a great, great movie. And they said, oh, okay, we'll try it. And Danny Boyle will say to this day, it wasn't Hollywood that made me, it was the Toronto Festival. Well, I remember some remarkable drinking with the guys at Chariots of Fire. And they were just thrilled because they thought it was never going to get out of England, and it was just going to be an okay film. But they had a terrific time when they were here. The Big Chill guys, that was, Wayne was lucky, he was directing the film then, so he spent a lot more time with those guys. In fact, when they had the reunion, he brought the program book. I don't know, he's some kind of a pack rat, Wayne Clarkson is. How he keeps these things, I have no idea. So we were looking at it. But I think what you get with directors and actors who have that kind of talent is they realize that a lot of it's luck. You know, would Glenn Close or Kevin or any of those people being as lucky as they were if they hadn't had that film? Maybe not. I mean, look at the guy who was almost cut out of the film, Kevin Costner. He's just a cuff in that film. But he had to go on and find Dances with Wolves. Yeah, I don't know how you explain that. It's kind of, you know, like you're in a theater company and you're going from town to town, and then suddenly you're in a hit, and everybody loves you, and there's that warmth. I mean, one of the great examples of that, I was talking to Richard Zanuck, who was Darryl Zanuck's son, and a bright filmmaker, and he was telling me about their slate, and he said, we got some good ones, we got some dogs. And I said, well, what are the good ones? He said, well, we've got The Legend of Violet Clare. What happened to that? And then we got Paint Your Wagon, which was Clint Eastwood in his first musical. That didn't go very well. He said, but then we got some turkeys. They're trying to take their name off it now. MASH. Well, William Goldman put it best. Nobody in Hollywood knows anything. They don't know what they've got. And one of the things at a festival is you find out. And that's one of the great things about the Toronto audience. I don't know how they know, but they know when they're very polite and they don't boo and hiss the way they would in Cannes. But if they like something, they really let you know. And, you know, every year, the people that win the audience award here, that's almost a shoo-in for being the best film at the Oscars. King's Speech, 12 Years a Slave, who knew? Out of all the movies that are made. But the Toronto audience knows. How do they? I don't know. The great thing about having a festival is you get a whole scope of programming. You try to have the Hollywood blockbusters before they are Hollywood blockbusters. But then you try to find something, you say, this picture should get picked up. And when they do, it's a great feeling for us. You know, you talk about people complain about festivals. There's professional pitchers that complain about everything. I never liked them before, don't like them now. That's not going to change. They're not going to stop bitching, and I'm not going to stop saying, bugger off.
So in the early days of starting the Toronto Festival, who would you say was the #1 professional bitcher against the festival?
Hands down, the Globe and Mail. They sent their yachting correspondent to cover it, and he wrote a big review saying, well, they say it's going to be this, it's going to be that. I'll wait and see. It could be a dog's breakfast. My view is some dog, some breakfast. And I think the Globe and Mail's still on that job now. They got Kelly Nestor, who yesterday had a big feature article the day before Luminato opened saying they've got a huge hole that they'll never get out of. And this is not your job as a drama critic. Your job is to look at the shows that get there, not to be a financial analyst and decide whether Jorn Weisbrot knows what he's doing. I've never met Jorn Weisbrot, but I like his style. He says, I want to bring the best to this city because it should be the best. And I think that's what Toronto's used to, being the best and getting the best.